Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music, with me, the 80s Mixtaper. I'm your musical tour guide through the biggest, brightest and best songs of the most colourful decade in pop, and today we crack into Playlist 26 and July 1981. For those new to the pod, in 2016 I set upon a quest to listen to every single UK charting entry for the top 75 singles chart from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. Why? Well, that's actually a very good question, but it all came down to wanting to understand the 80s better, as when it was all going on I was little more than a kid who had specific memories of the music but generally linked it to birthday parties or Chewbacca picking a fight with Optimus Prime. So in 2016, I set about this quest, and it was slow at first. I'd gotten to the mid-80s by the time COVID struck, and then, well, as you can imagine, being stuck indoors gave me a lot more time for Haircut 100, Go West and Guns N' Roses, and by 2021, I'd finally completed the mission. This podcast is the retelling of that story, and every week we inch the calendar forward a little more and tell the stories of the bands, any personal recollections, the breakups, the makeups, the highs, the lows, the funny bits in between. Unfortunately, due to copyright laws, we can't play the songs on the pod, but being the enterprising young man I am, you will find playlists for both Spotify and Apple Music in the episode description. And what I tend to do is have the podcast and Spotify open when I'm out for a walk and just flick between the two, and it all works pretty well. Those playlists will work on all major podcast platforms, but if you're on one where they're not supported, you will also find a full track listing in the episode description too. As you know, we do love your comments, musings and corrections on this show, and this week we'd like to give a special shout out to listener Julian Gant, who enjoyed the Elaine Page Barbara Streisand sing-off episode number 25. He's off to see Level 42 in October and is also a big fan of the Human League, the Pet Shop Boys and Alison Moyet. He also weighed in on the Babs versus Elaine debate, going with Dame Elaine for Cats and Barbara for Blood Brothers. I Know Him So Well is one of his all-time favourite songs. If you'd like to get in touch with the show for any musings, memories or dedications, you can find us on the socials as the 80s Mixtaper, that's 80S. Or if you're old school, you can email in to completed80s@aol.com. And again, that's completed in an 80S. Anyway, let's get back to the music. We start today with the dramatic conclusion of the Specials. The last time we caught up with Terry Hall and the band, they'd released More Specials and its lead single Stereotype, a song that showed Jerry Dammers pushing the band into weirder, jazzier territory, rubbing some members the wrong way. Now, we've arrived at the iconic Ghost Town, a song I remember vividly as a 3-year-old, their haunted, hollowed-out masterpiece that hit number 1 in the UK on July the 7th, 1981, and it stayed there for 3 weeks, lingering in the top 40 for 10. This is the sound of a band and a country coming unglued, a song so eerily on the nose, it feels like it summarised the riots that erupted across Britain that summer. It's also the final gasp of the Specials' original lineup, a group that defined the two-tone ska revival. Next, we talk about the song, the band's implosion, and whether ska itself was running on fumes by this point. This is track 1, Playlist 26. Ghost Town really wasn't just a song. It was a vignette of a Britain gutted by economic turmoil. Unemployment was spiking, over 2 million jobless by mid-1981, a 70% jump in 2 years. Shops were shuttered, industries collapsing across the industrial and mining heartlands such as Coventry, where the Specials formed. Jerry Dammers, the band's keyboardist and brain trust, saw it firsthand. He told The Guardian in 2002, "You travelled from town to town, and what was happening was terrible. In Liverpool, all the shops were shuttered up. Everything was closing down." The song's lyrics, sparse but surgical, nail this desolation. This town is coming like a ghost town. All the clubs have been closed down. That's the Locarno in Coventry, a haunt for Neville Staple and Linval Golding, now a library. The line, "too much fighting on the dance floor," wasn't abstract. It came from real gigs disrupted by National Front goons, skinheads clashing despite the band's anti-racist stance. Linval Golding himself got jumped in a racist attack in 1980, inspiring the B-side Why, a raw plea for tolerance. Ghost Town is a departure from the upbeat ska of the Specials. Dammers, obsessed with reggae's roots, wanted a Sly and Robbie vibe. He tapped producer John Collins, who'd worked on Victor Romero Evans at the club, a lover's rock track with a spooky edge that caught Dammer's ear. Collins recorded it in a tiny 8-track studio in Leamington Spa, recommended by bassist Horace Panter, a far cry from the 24-track sprawl of more Specials. Each member laid down parts separately, no live band energy, which mirrored the band's fracturing. Collins told Sound on Sound in 2011, everybody was stood in different parts of this huge room with their equipment, no one talking. Dammer's Hammond organ churns a two-handed shuffle. Dick Cuffle's trumpet and Rico Rodriguez's trombone accent like sirens, and Paul Heskett's flute, added at the last minute, haunts the mix. Collins, sweating bullets, had to overdub that flute onto the brass track, risking the whole recording. The result is a ghostly dub, fading in with a transcendent 2000 synth wail, like wind through a dead city. The band was falling apart as they made it. Dammer's push for Muzak sounds clashed with Roddy Byers' rockabilly leanings and Terry Hall's desire to write his own stuff. Panter recalled to Sound on Sound, Jerry stormed out a couple of times virtually in tears, and I went after him. Calm down, calm down. Byers kicked a hole in the studio door. Golding burst in, yelling the brass was wrong, wrong, wrong. Staple flat out refused some of Dammer's ideas. By the time they hit Top of the Pops to perform Ghost Town, Hall, Staple and Golding told Dammers they were done. They split to form Funboy 3, leaving Dammers to limp on with Special AKA until 1984's Free Nelson Mandela. The song's timing was uncanny. Released on June the 12th, 1981, it climbed as riots hit Brixton, Toxteth, Moss Side and beyond, sparked by police brutality and stop-and-search tactics targeting black youth. Government leaving the youth on the shelf, Dammers wrote, a line that felt like it predicted the chaos. The video, shot by Barney Bubbles in London's empty early morning streets with Panter driving a Vauxhall Cresta, amplifies the eeriness. Staples' intense delivery of why must the youth fight against themselves is so prescient. So, was the ska revival dead by 81? The Special split was a blow, no question. Two-Tone, the label Dammers founded, was slowing down. Madness and the Beat was still kicking, but the movement's peak was 79 to 80 with hits like Gangsters and Too Much Too Young. By 1981, the momentum was fading. A new wave was taking over. The riots gave Ghost Town a spotlight, but they also signalled a shift. Music was changing. Still, Madness kept charting and the Specials' influence lingered into later revivals. The movement wasn't dead, but it was wobbling, its multiracial optimism strained by a country at odds with its identity. Ghost Town captured a moment despite being written prior to the riots. Dammer said in 2011 to The Independent, "It's hard to explain how powerful it sounded. We'd almost been written off, and then Ghost Town came out of the blue." For track 2 today, last time we caught up with REO Speedwagon, they were riding high with their chart-topping ballad, Keep On Loving You, from their 1980 album High Infidelity. The Champaign, Illinois quintet, named after a fire engine designed by Ransom Eli Olds, finally broken through after a decade of grinding through the 1970s with modest album success and a cult following built on relentless touring. Their ninth album went galactic though, hitting number 1 on the Billboard 200 and eventually selling over 15 million copies. Now, in 1981, they followed up with Take It On The Run, a track that solidified their arena rock dominance while weaving a tale of suspicion and heartbreak. Press play now. Released as a single on March the 27th, 1981, Take It On The Run was written by lead guitarist Gary Richrath with lyrical tweaks from frontman Kevin Cronin. The song, a pop rock anthem clocking in at 3:59, captures the sting of rumoured infidelity. Its opening lines, Heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from another, you've been messing around. These words, delivered with Cronin's earnest tenor, frame a narrative of distrust fueled by second-hand gossip. The chorus hits harder. You take it on the run, baby. If that's the way you want it, baby, then I don't want you around. It's a defiant ultimatum, raw and unpolished, reflecting a man caught between denial and resolve. Cronin himself revealed the song's evolution in a 2016 classic rock interview. As soon as I heard Don't Let Me Down, I knew it could be awesome. This really grabbed me by the nuts. Of course, originally titled Don't Let Me Down, Cronin pushed for the name change to Take It on the Run and added the pivotal chorus. You're under the gun, so you take it on the run, noting it either makes sense or it doesn't, but it sure sung well and it sure rhymed. Rich Rath's songwriting credit stands, but the high infidelity liner notes acknowledge Cronin's lyrical assistance. The result was a track record world called a power ballad, blending crunchy guitars with a melody that hooked listeners. Chart-wise, the song did well in the US, peaking at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and earning gold certification on April the 17th, 1981, with 500,000 units shipped. Across the pond, it hit number 19 on the UK singles chart, spending 14 weeks from June the 27th to September the 26th, 1981. It also reached number 4 on Canada's RPM singles chart and number 6 on the US top rock tracks. The song's cultural footprint extended beyond radio. Its music video, another debut on MTV's debut day, August the 1st, 1981, suffered a glitch, cutting to black just 12 seconds in, a hiccup in an otherwise iconic moment. The track's DNA even resurfaced in 2017 when Pitbull and Enrique Iglesias interpolated it with their song Messin' Around. For REO, Take It on the Run was a victory lap after years of near misses. As Cronin reflected in a 2021 post on REOSpeedwagon.com, this little bar band from Illinois had gone from never having a hit to having back-to-back top 5 singles. It was pretty awesome. Musically, the track showcases Rich Rath's searing guitar riffs, Neil Doughty's synth flourishes, and Alan Gratz's steady drums, with Bruce Hall on bass and Tom Kelly adding backing vocals. It's quintessential 1980s arena rock, big, bold, and unapologetic. Yet, the lyrics' raw vulnerability, questioning trust while asserting independence, gives it a timeless edge. Fans on X still reminisce about its emotional pull, with one user recalling it as a soundtrack to their summer romance, though others are less kind, calling it a boring dirge or worse. Love it or hate it, Take It on the Run captures a band at their peak, channeling personal and universal truths into a 3-minute blast of rock defiance. Now, for the first time on this pod, we explore the alluring power of the Bond theme. Last time we met Sheena Easton, she was riding the wave of her 1980 single One Man Woman, a sprightly pop number that hit number 14 on the UK singles chart, the final single of her 1980 trinity with Modern Girl and Morning Train. By 1981, Easton was no longer just a BBC documentary subject or a Grammy-winning Best New Artist. She was poised for something bigger, a chance to etch her name in the storied legacy of James Bond themes with For Your Eyes Only, the title track from the 12th Bond film, released June the 15th, 1981. This was a baton passed in a lineage of songs that have defined cinema's most enduring spy. This is track 3, playlist 26. The Bond theme is a peculiar beast. Part marketing, part art, always a tightrope. From Shirley Bassey's booming Goldfinger to Paul McCartney's quirky Live and Let Die, these songs don't just set a mood, they're expected to capture the film's soul while standing alone as pop hits. For Your Eyes Only, written by Bill Conti and Mick Leeson, it leaned into a softer, more intimate sound, a departure from the brassy swagger of earlier themes. Conti, fresh off his Rocky score, initially had Donna Summer or Dusty Springfield in mind, according to his own commentary on the film's Ultimate Edition DVD. United Artists pushed for Easton, whose Morning Train 9 to 5 had just topped the US Billboard Hot 100. Conti was sceptical until he met her, But Easton's vocal control, delicate in the verses, soaring in the chorus, proved she could carry the song's emotional weight. The lyrics are romantic like a Bond girl in a confessional. For your eyes only can see me through the night. For your eyes only, I never need to hide. They mirrored the film's grounded espionage plot, emphasising trust and secrecy over gadget-laden spectacle. Easton's delivery, produced by Christopher Neal, is restrained yet powerful, with a haunting piano and sweeping strings that build without overwhelming. The song hit number 8 on the UK singles chart and climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, topping charts as well in Switzerland, Norway and the Netherlands. It earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song, a testament to its global reach. What sets For Your Eyes Only apart is its visual legacy. Easton became the first, and to date, the only artist to appear in a Bond film's opening credits, a decision by title designer Maurice Binder, who was captivated by her look. Maurice liked my appearance, Easton recalled in a 2000 BBC documentary, Never Can Say Goodbye. But filming was unglamorous. I was strapped to a chair for the lip zoom shot. That sequence, with its hypnotic visuals, made her part of Bond mythos, outshining even Roger Moore's wry charm, as Moore himself noted. Her appearance was sexier than any Bond girl. The song's success wasn't just commercial, it marked a shift in Bond themes towards emotional depth, paving the way for later entries like Adele's Skyfall. Easton's performance, both vocal and visual, bridged pop stardom and cinematic history, proving a Bond theme could be a hit without sacrificing soul. Now, staying with film themes, we encounter a song which on the surface is just a good tune. However, when paired with the incredible director John Hughes and the rites of passage genre which featured heavily in the 80s from Animal House to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, this next song is iconic, and it's titled Birthed, one of the decade's signature films. If you ever followed the exploits of Andy and Ducky, this one's for you. This is the Psychedelic Furs with Pretty in Pink. This is track 4. Press play now. We're in London, it's the late 70s, a city thick with the anger of punk's rebellion, where bands thrashed against the status quo in grimy pubs, but not against the band status quo, that would be harsh. Out of this cauldron emerged the Psychedelic Furs, a six-piece outfit formed in 1977 by brothers Richard Butler on vocals, Tim Butler on bass, alongside Roger Morris on guitar, John Ashton on guitar, Vince Eli on drums, and Duncan Kilburn on saxophone. Their sound leaned into the raw energy of the Sex Pistols, but layered it with art rock flourishes pulled from David Bowie and Roxy music. By 1980, their self-titled debut album had carved a niche in the post-punk scene, blending jagged guitars with Richard Butler's gravelly croon. Critics took notice. The NME called their early work a collision of chaos and melody, and they gained a cult following in the UK's underground clubs. In 1981, they released their second album, Talk, 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 and its standout single, Pretty in Pink, a track that would ripple far beyond its initial release. The single peaked at number 43 on the UK singles chart in July 1981, a modest showing for a song that would later define an era. Pretty in Pink, produced by Steve Lillywhite, clocks in at 3 minutes and 57 seconds in its original 1981 version. Its sound is unmistakable, a saxophone wail underlining the rhythm from Kilburn, paired with Morris and Ashton's gritty guitars, creating a teen punk pop pulse. Richard Butler's lyrics, sharp and cinematic, paint a portrait of a woman named Caroline. Caroline laughs and it's rainy all day. She loves to be one of the girls, but she lives in the place in the side of our lives where nothing is ever put straight. Butler himself described its edge in a 1986 interview with Cream. It's about a girl who sleeps around a lot and thinks that she's popular because of it. The people that she's sleeping with are laughing about her behind her back. Caroline's confidence is a facade, her pink dress a symbol of visibility in a world that misreads her. The chorus, pretty in pink, isn't she? Pretty in pink, isn't she? Drips with irony, a jab at shallow perceptions of allure. The song's narrative caught the ear of a young John Hughes, the American filmmaker who'd soon shape the 1980s teen experience. By 1986, Hughes had turned Pretty in Pink into a film starring Molly Ringwald as Andy, a working-class teen navigating love and social cliques. The movie, while inspired by the song, softened its bite. Where the Furs' Caroline was a tragic figure, Andy was a scrappy heroine who sewed her own prom dress. The Psychedelic Furs re-recorded the track for the soundtrack, a smoother, poppier version that hit number 18 on the UK charts and number 41 on the Billboard Hot 100. Hughes' film, released in 86, became a cultural touchstone, but it also reframed the song's cynicism as a backdrop for teenage romance, a shift that Butler later noted with ambivalence in a 1997 Spin interview. The film made it something it wasn't meant to be, but it brought us to a bigger audience. This pivot reflected a broader trend in the 1980s, the rise of rites of passage films that captured the messy hormonal chaos of youth. Unlike the anarchic rebellion of Animal House in 1978, which revelled in college debauchery, or the treasure-hunting camaraderie of the Goonies in 1985, Hughes' films like Pretty in Pink and Ferris Bueller's Day Off in 86 zeroed in on the personal. They tackled class, identity, and the ache of growing up in suburban America. The Goonies, directed by Richard Donner, leaned on adventure, its kids chasing pirate gold to save their homes. Ferris Bueller, another Hughes gem, celebrated a day of gleeful truancy. Yet all these films shared a knack for bottling the fleeting intensity of youth, moments of defiance, heartbreak, or discovery set to unforgettable soundtracks. Pretty in Pink's use of the Furs song cemented its place in this wave, alongside tracks like Simple Minds' Don't You Forget About Me and The Breakfast Club. For us, as kids or teens, they weren't just movies, they were mirrors for a generation navigating the cusp of adulthood. The Psychedelic Furs by 1981 were still a band on the rise. Formed in Muswell Hill, North London, they played their first gig as Roxy Music Support in 1977 under the name RKO. By 1979, they'd settled on the Psychedelic Furs, a nod to their blend of punk snarl and psychedelic texture. Their debut album, produced by Steve Lillywhite, reached number 18 on the UK albums chart, setting the stage for Talk Talk Talk. Pretty in Pink was their first single to gain traction beyond the UK, though its full impact came later. The band's early years were marked by relentless touring from London's Marquee Club to New York's CBGB, building a reputation for raw, charismatic live shows. Richard Butler, with his tousled hair and chain-smoking stage presence, became a post-punk icon, his voice a jagged instrument that carried the band's tales of alienation. The song's legacy is dual-edged. For some, it's the sound of 1981 London, a post-punk anthem of disillusionment. For others, it's forever tied to Hughes' pastel-hued vision of 1980s America. Its lyrics, rooted in Butler's observations of two women he knew in London, not high schoolers despite the film's setting, they hold a universal sting. The gap between how we see ourselves and how others do. She is gone, but the joke's the same, sings Butler, a line that lingers like a bruise. The song's influence endures not just in film connection, but in its raw portrait of a woman caught in society's gaze, a theme that outlives its era. For track 5, we're back with a special brew guzzling ska outfit. Last time we caught up with Bad Manners, their 1981 single Just a Feeling was climbing the UK charts, peaking at number 13, and showcasing their knack for blending raw energy with two-tone ska's infectious bounce. Now, we're diving into their next big hit, Can Can, released in June 1981, a track that not only lit up dance floors, but also cemented the band's place as competitors to Madness for the title of Most Fun Ska Outfit. This instrumental, pulled from their third album, Gosh It's Bad Manners, is a reimagining of Jacques Offenbach's Galop Infernal, the iconic music tied to the Can Can dance, twisted into a ska punk romp that hit number 3 on the UK singles chart for 4 weeks, matching the success of their earlier hit Special Brew. Press play now. Formed in London in 1976, Bad Manners, fronted by the larger-than-life Doug Trendle, aka Buster Bloodvessel, were known for their chaotic live shows and cheeky working-class humour. By 1981, they were riding the two-tone wave alongside bands like the Specials and Madness, but with a rougher edge, think less polished suits, more sweat-soaked rebellion. Can Can was a departure from their usual vocal-driven tracks. As John Shearlaw noted in the Record Mirror, you wouldn't believe that Buster Bloodvessel could keep his enormous mouth shut for the length of a single, but that's exactly what he does on this delightful workout, a guaranteed hit. The track's lack of vocals didn't dim its appeal. Instead, it leaned hard into its frenetic brass and driving rhythm, a 2-minute and 55-second burst of pure energy produced by Roger Lomas. The single, released on Magnet Records, dropped on June the 19th, 1981, with Armchair Disco as its B-side. It stormed the charts, entering on the June the 27th, and spending 13 weeks total, 6 of these in the top 10. Its chart run was a steady climb, peaking at number 3 for 4 weeks, then sliding until it exited at 71. Internationally, it found traction too, number 13 in Belgium, number 15 in Ireland, and 11 on the Dutch Top 40, though it only hit 76 in Australia. The arrangement, credited to the band, took Offenbach's 19th century operatic flourish and gave it a ska makeover, complete with punchy saxophones and a rhythm section that demanded movement. As an instrumental, the Can Can's melody is instantly recognisable, a whirlwind of horns and percussion that evokes high-kicking dancers, flashing their bloomers, and rowdy pub nights. Critics loved its audacity. Shearlaw called it a truly breathtaking piece of opportunism, with dizzy production and instant appeal. The track's success was also cultural. Bad Manners tapped into the UK early 80s youth subculture, where ska's upbeat defiance offered an escape from economic gloom and social tension. Their shows, often teetering on chaos, mirrored the song's relentless pace, with Buster's stage antics, think tongue-wagging and belly-flopping, amplifying their cult status. The single's vinyl releases, catalogued on Discogs, spanned formats and countries: UK, Netherlands, Germany, Spain, even Yugoslavia and Mexico, each with slight variations like solid or push-out centres. Its cover, designed by Brian Palmer, leaned into the band's cartoonish vibe, a nod to their playful irreverence. Can Can was a moment. I think we could all remember seeing them perform it on Top of the Pops, capturing Bad Manners at their peak, turning a French classical piece into a ska anthem that still gets the feet moving. Right. Time for another song I'm not overly keen on, but needs a listen. Doesn't happen often. I try to be as positive as I can be on this pod, and 99% of the time I'm celebrating the songs. As we know, in 1981 the UK pop charts are a strange, glittering mosaic of synth-pop, post-punk, post-disco, new wave, early hip-hop, but also a peculiar trend: the medley single. Among them is Gidea Park's Beach Boy Gold, a sun-soaked, meticulously crafted tribute to the Beach Boys that climbed to number 11 on the UK singles chart, lingering for 13 weeks from July the 4th to September the 26th, 1981. Given the Beach Boys' pomp was in the 60s, this song was a time machine, stitching together 10 Beach Boy classics into a 4-minute burst of nostalgia. But why, in an era of new wave and emerging MTV, did this pastiche of 1960s surf rock find a foothold? And why did the medley craze, epitomised by the likes of Stars on 45, grip the charts at all? Let's find out. This is track 6, playlist 26. Gidea Park, the brainchild of Adrian Baker, wasn't a band in the traditional sense. Baker, a producer and arranger with a knack for vocal harmonies, built Beach Boy Gold in the studio, layering his own voice to mimic the Beach Boys' signature sound. The single, released on Stone, was a medley of Graduation Day, Catch a Wave, Surfing USA, I Get Around, Little Old Lady from Pasadena, Fun, 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 Sloop John B., Dance, 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 When I Grow Up, and Good Vibrations. Each snippet was a carefully polished gem, arranged to flow seamlessly, a nod to Brian Wilson's genius, without ever quite matching it. The medley trend wasn't new, but by 1981 it seemed to be in its zenith. Stars on 45, a Dutch studio project, had stormed the charts earlier that year with their Beatles medley, peaking at number 2 in the UK. Their formula, stringing together recognisable hits over a relentless disco beat, tapped into a collective yearning for familiarity. The UK was reeling from economic strife, with unemployment soaring. Nostalgia offered comfort, and medleys delivered it in bite-sized danceable doses. Stars on 45 Volume 2, also in the charts in August 1981, sat at number 9 just above Gidea Park's effort. Tight Fits Back to the 60s was another contender, hitting number 10 that same week. These weren't songs so much as jukeboxes, cramming decades of hits into a single vinyl groove. But Beach Boy Gold stood apart. Where Stars on 45 leaned into metronomic beats, Baker's arrangement prioritised the Beach Boys' harmonic richness. He was interpreting, channeling the California dream through a British lens. The track's B-side, Lady Be Good, a nod to Gershwin, hinted at Baker's broader musical ambitions. Yet, for all its craft, the single couldn't escape the medley's inherent flaw. It couldn't hold a candle to the originals. It's not really trying to be the original. The production's a bit sterile and cliché, but it's a cracking vocal performance. That captures Beach Boy Gold perfectly. Technically impressive, emotionally hollow. I guess imitation is the highest form of flattery. The lyrics highlight the melody's structure. It opens with Graduation Day. There's a time for joy, a time for tears, a time we'll treasure through the years. Then it segues into Surfing USA. Each transition is abrupt yet deliberate, designed to keep listeners hooked on familiarity. It's doom scrolling, but for the 80s generation. By the time Good Vibration closes the medley, I'm picking up Good Vibrations, she's giving me excitations. The listener is awash in a saccharine rush, but it's fleeting. The song doesn't linger, it evaporates. So why did this work? The cultural pendulum was swinging towards the past. Medleys like Beach Boy Gold were less about innovation and more about curation, a way to repackage the past for a generation grappling with a fractured present. Baker presumably wanted to capture the spirit of the Beach Boys, that sense of endless summer. His desire was undeniable, but the result felt like a postcard from a place no one could visit anymore. The medley craze didn't last though. Very quickly, the charts were dominated by originals, Tainted Love and Don't You Want Me to name but a few, and very quickly the mood of the nation would change, pushing nostalgia aside. Gidea Park managed one more hit, Seasons of Gold peaking at number 28 later in 1981, but their moment was brief. The trend would briefly reappear in the late 80s with Jive Bunny. The appeal of Beach Boy Gold lay in its precision, its ability to bottle a feeling without adding to it. It was a product of its time, a mirror held up to a world that wanted to dance to yesterday's hits. For 13 weeks, it did just that, peaking at number 11, and reminding listeners of a California they'd never known. We finish today with some more pioneering legends. In the heart of Dusseldorf, Germany, where the Rhine River carves a path through industrial landscapes, a band emerged in 1970 that would redefine music's relationship with technology. Kraftwerk, founded by Ralf Hutter and Florian Schneider, began as an experimental outfit rooted in the avant-garde krautrock scene. Their early work, under the name Organisation, leaned into psychedelic and progressive sounds. But by the time they built their Kling-Klang studio in Dusseldorf, the duo, joined by various collaborators over the years, set their sights on a new frontier, electronic music. This is our first meeting with the elder statesmen of synthpop. This is their hit, The Model, track 7, playlist 26, our final song today. By 1974, with their fourth album Autobahn, Kraftwerk had fully embraced synthesizers, crafting a 22-minute title track that captured the rhythmic hum of a motorway. Edited down for radio, it became their first UK hit, peaking at number 11. The band's lineup solidified in 1975, with Karl Bartos and Wolfgang Flür forming the iconic quartet that would produce their most influential work. Albums like Radioactivity in 1975, Trans-Europe Express in 1977, and The Man Machine in 1978 explored themes of technology, modernity, and human-machine interplay. Their music was more than just a sound, it was a philosophy, blending minimalism with futuristic vision. David Bowie, a fan, praised their innovation. By 1981, with Computer World, Kraftwerk were no longer underground curiosities, but pioneers who influenced stretch from synth-pop to hip-hop and techno. Enter The Model, a track from The Man Machine, originally released in 1978 but reissued as a single in 1981. Written by Ralph Hutter and Karl Bartos, with lyrics by artist Emil Schult, the song titled Das Model in German captures the allure and emptiness of the fashion world. Its lyrics paint a vivid scene. She's a model and she's looking good. I'd like to take her home, that's understood. She plays hard to get, she smiles from time to time. It only takes a camera to change her mind. Sung in a detached vocoder processed monotone, the words critique the commodification of beauty, a theme as sharp today as it was then. The German version includes a quirky nod to Dusseldorf culture with the phrase "Sekt korrekt," a waiter's catchphrase overheard by the band. Musically, the model is economic in its structure. A hypnotic synthesizer riff loops over a steady drum machine pulse, likely a precursor to the Roland TR-808, while sparse effects and vocoder vocals create a robotic yet human texture. The production, clean and precise, was revolutionary for '78, setting a template for electronic music. As Karl Bartos later reflected in a 2005 interview, we wanted to make music that sounded like the future, but also like now. The song's B-side, Computer Love, a tender synth ballad, complemented its critique with a meditation on technology and romance. Initially a modest album track, the song performed poorly in the summer of 1981, but found its moment in 1982 when re-released alongside Computer Love. The single rocketed to number 1 on the UK singles chart in February 1982, Kraftwerk's only UK chart topper, spending 21 weeks on the chart with 1 week at the top. It also hit number 7 in West Germany, number 4 in Ireland and number 33 in Australia, while reaching number 39 on the US dance club chart. The delayed success owed much to the early 80s synth pop boom, with bands like Depeche Mode and New Order riding Kraftwerk's wave. Kraftwerk's legacy through the model is undeniable. They were one of the pioneers of electronic music. They shaped its DNA. Their minimalist approach and embrace of technology influenced genres far beyond synth pop. Hip-hop producers sampled their beats, techno artists adopted their precision, and fashion embraced their aesthetic. Runways still echo their sleek, robotic imagery. The song's critique of image obsession feels prescient in our social media age, where filters and poses still dominate. The model remains a paradox, a cold mechanical track with a warm human core. Its lyrics cut through the glamour to reveal a mechanised reality. Kraftwerk's ability to blend satire with melody, innovation with accessibility, made them architects of modern music. From Dusseldorf's Kling Klang studio to global airwaves, they proved that machines could sing and say something profound. So that's it for the first half of Playlist 26, but join us next week where Kate Bush enters her mad as a balloon phase, Candido breaks open the door to the UK house scene, ABBA drop their last bit of disco, and Spandau Ballet hit their stride with chart number 1. As always, if you can leave us a review on your pod platform of choice, it all helps with the rankings, please. But until next episode, have a great week, take care.